I'm here at a hotel actually. Was really just getting sick of being at home all the time. And as somebody who normally travels every couple of weeks for fun, I just love traveling and haven't traveled since February. This is like joy for me. I am here with my dog, which I haven't traveled with him in ages. So I feel like I'm like babysitting at the same time, but excited to be here and yeah, coming at you from a new location. So that's why the setup looks a little bit different today. But the topic that we're talking about is so important. And one of my favorite things to really talk about is this idea that there is a right way to grow your business, or really this idea that there's a right way to do freaking anything in your life or in the world, that there's like the proven way you have to do it if you want to be successful. And so I've got a few things that I want to talk about with you in terms of why I think this is a myth, why I think this is probably not serving you to believe that there's a right way to grow a business, and what kind of mentality you can adopt instead. So, first things first, I have three main things that I want to share with you. The first one is a question. Why are you pressuring yourself to do it the right way? Why are you pressuring yourself to do it the right way? And what even is the right way in your mind? What do you think the right way to grow a business is? And you've probably unconsciously developed this idea of what the right way is based on what you've seen other people do or what you've seen people talk about. You might have this concept of this is the right way to grow a business. And so you've internally adopted this mentality of what you think you gotta do in order to be successful. And so herein lies the problem is that you may be following a path that somebody else created that doesn't actually align with what it is that you want to do, what you care about, who you are as a person, and what even lifestyle you want to have. So there's a lot of people out there who say like, I want to have a seven-figure company. I want to run this really big operation with lots of employees, and I want to like be a known name in my industry because they think that's the right way to do it. You've got to grow a business and then get to six figures and then seven figures and beyond. And it feels like this is the right way to do it because that's the message that you're fed, but with no consideration of what would that actually take for you to have a seven-figure company? Is that the lifestyle that you want? What would you have to do in order to have that? And is that really something that actually serves you and feels aligned for you? And so we can get caught up in this image of what we think the right way is, rather than the way that we actually want to operate in the world. And I also think that this mentality of doing it the right way, following the right path, following the status quo, essentially, it kills innovation, because innovation and creativity are inherently individual and authentic. True creativity and true innovation is creativity meets strategy. And so the strategy might be following this proven path, but if you don't have the authentic creativity to pair with that, then you can't innovate. You can't do things creatively. You're basically just following this rigid path that you think you have to, which doesn't actually bring joy or fulfillment. It just leads you to a place that you might feel is super off course when you get there because it actually wasn't anything that you wanted to create in the first place. And so going back to my original question, why are you pressuring yourself to do it the right way? Is it because you were given this message by family that thought that you should follow this certain career path? Is it because of friends or peers that you have who are doing certain things in their companies and businesses, and so you think you should be doing those things too? Is it social media that's pressuring you into feeling like you need to show up in a certain way, look a certain way, talk a certain way, have certain results or certain factors in your business that indicate that you're successful? Is it from society as a whole that you're looking at and thinking, okay, this must be the path that I need to follow in order to get results, in order to be a known name in my industry, all of these things. And so just gaining some awareness around where does this idea come from and what am I afraid might happen if I did it my own way? What are you afraid might happen if you just like chucked it all out the window, chucked all of the mainstream advice, chucked all of those Instagram posts, chucked all of your family's wishes for you, just let it all go and you did it exactly the way that you want to do it, what are you afraid could happen? When I ask people this question, a lot of the times what they're afraid of is they're going to fail. There isn't the trust in themselves to take a risk on their own idea. That's a really big one. Trust in themselves to do it their own way. There's also this fear that they don't know. They just don't know what's going to work. And it kind of feels like you need to know exactly what's going to work instead of allowing yourself to be open to testing things and experimentation and finding joy in the process versus just in the result. Like, what if you could fall in love with the process of growing a business instead of simply the result that's on the other side? Would your entire life change? Would you be able to do it your way and have fun as you experiment instead of just when you get to this like glorious result that lasts for a few minutes and then you're on to the next one? So that's the first thing that I want you to think about. The second thing is there is actually no right way. And beyond even just saying that, let me tell you why that's true. And if you're here right now, leave a comment. Let me know how this is landing for you. I would love to hear if you've been feeling like you're getting caught up in doing it the right way, or if you think there's room for you to do it your way more. What that looks like for you, what you're afraid of might happen. So leave a comment. Let me know how you're feeling about all of this so far. But the second thing that I want to share is that there actually is no right way. Right and wrong are incredibly subjective. They are incredibly individual. And we adopt the right way from other people, from our family, friends, Instagram, society, other businesses, comparison. We adopt what we think the right way is from other people. And so we've created this incredibly subjective idea. We've taken it from other people and adopted it as our own, thinking that it's truth. It's not actually truth. At least it's not your truth, because you get to define what your reality looks like. You get to define what right and wrong are. You get to define what things feel like. You don't actually have to pull them from what other people say is true. You get to decide that. And so there actually is no right way to grow a business. There might be their way or this person's way, but there also gets to be your way. And so, yes, there are strategies that are important that could help you get to a certain place faster. But there are also other strategies you could use that might feel better to you. And there also might be a creative spin that you can put on something that would work better for you. For example, I was coaching a student recently who, and this is actually something that I experienced in my own life too, who said, I have this like really edgy style, I have tattoos, but I work in this industry that I feel is kind of buttoned up. And so I feel like I need to cover myself and I need to wear a blazer and I need to dress the part in order to look professional. And so it's this feeling of I need to do it the right way. I need to look the part in order to get the clients, in order to look like a professional. And so what I told her was that actually you get to look however you want to look. You get to dress however you want to dress. And the people who want to work with somebody like that are going to want to work with you over these other people who are very buttoned up. And that there's space for all of us to show up authentically, because there are people in our spaces who want someone that's exactly like you. And so you get to do it your way. You don't have to look a certain way, act a certain way, do a certain strategy that doesn't feel good to you. You get to create business in whatever way actually feels aligned to you. And so that brings me to this idea of alignment, which I know I talk about a lot because I think it's literally everything in life and business. Just how are you living in alignment, or how are you living in the status quo? So I think it is kind of an either or. So the status quo is essentially following what you think you should do, what you're supposed to do, what everyone else does, because it's the way that society flows. It's the way that we've been taught that you can't stand out too much, you can't be too different. You have to follow the status quo. And then there's this other option of alignment. So alignment is what I think just simply living your truth, whatever way that means for you. And sometimes living your truth means that you go against the grain. Sometimes it means you go against the status quo. And that's what alignment gets to be. And so sometimes in business, doing it the right way uh, means that you have to deny your alignment. You have to deny your truth and do it in the way that the status quo wants you to, rather than the way that you actually feel aligned to do. And that sucks, just to put it simply. That freaking sucks because it doesn't create actual fulfillment. And maybe you'll get to a result, but it's hard to sustain it because you feel so burnt out and bored and exhausted. And so what if you just let go of all of that? And what if you just allowed yourself to create a company and a life that felt limitless, that allowed you to live in your truth and your alignment instead of simply living in the status quo, which gets real old real fast. So I want you to think about, what would it look like for me to create an aligned business? A business that's rooted in my truth rather than a business that's rooted in me shape-shifting who I am into who I think I need to be in order to be successful. What would that look like for you? Leave a comment. Let me know. What would that look like? What's one thing that would change about the way that you do business now if you decided that you were going to do it in a more aligned way, a more honest way, a more you way? And I'm seeing a bunch of comments come in too. So let me see. Let's see what we got here. And then I'll go into my third point that I want to share with you. Yeah. I love that. For me, the right way is to do it by following my intuition and in a way that feels in harmony with my nature, following my values, and in a way that brings me joy. I love all of that. Yes. Yeah. And Ronnie, I was just going to say failing. That's the fear behind doing it your way instead of doing it the aligned way, is failing. Yeah. And which is so interesting, right? Because essentially it's saying that if I live the life of other people, the life that other people have told me is the right way to do it, then I won't fail. But as soon as I start to trust my own inner guidance, then I might fail. That is not trustworthy. And so it actually like pulls us away from that inner truth that we have inside that says that we are the most true, honest, reliable source of information, right? Ooh, I'd love to know more about that, Katie. Katie said, I feel that doing it the right way feels like the only way sometimes. Let me know more about that experience. Why does it feel like the only way? And how could you cultivate more connection to your own truth so that you can discover another way, or a way that may feel more aligned? And sometimes, by the way, the right way, the status quo way, it actually might feel like the aligned way for you. It doesn't mean you have to just like flip the table over and start from scratch. It might just mean that there are little tweaks that you get to make to how you run your business so that it feels more like you, kind of like the example I gave of my student who is all tatted up and has an edgy style and feels like she has to cover up. I mean, that's not changing her entire business model. It's just changing the way that she dresses to dress more like herself instead of feeling like she has to dress a certain way. So it could be just simple things that are keeping you from showing up fully authentically. And when you do that, when you show up fully authentically in who you are, then the dreamiest people come to you to work with you. The best people that you feel so invigorated by serving will find you and discover you and refer people to you and just fall in love with you and your brand. But when you are trying to like shift yourself into everyone else, then it's very vanilla, right? It doesn't feel like you. And that's what people really want, is they want to feel you. Yeah, I keep searching for the right way, and I think that's what's keeping me stuck. Mm-hmm. Ooh, ooh, love this, Florian. I felt like a true designer since the moment I started doing things my own way and following my intuition, and everything I'm building since then has been around what I want, the way I want it, and it feels so good. Yes, yes, there is so much freedom in doing it your way. It's life giving. It's literally life giving. And it's sustainable because when you try to do it the way of the status quo, the way of everyone else, the way that you think you should do something, if you do that for too long, then you really start to lose motivation. And if you're feeling unmotivated or you're procrastinating, that might be why, because you're putting pressure on the way you think it needs to be instead of the way you actually want to be doing it. Right. The problem is that we are constantly bombarded with information all over the place telling us what we have to do in order to be successful in social media. Yes. And so, what do you get to do in those scenarios if you're constantly bombarded with information and input? You get to create boundaries. You get to decide. I mean, the information is not just like, at least not yet, not just transmitting itself into your brain. You're showing up somewhere to allow that information to enter your awareness. You're scrolling Instagram, you're here on Facebook or on YouTube, or you're on these platforms that are telling you which way you need to be living. And so it's up to you. You get to create that reality of how much input you allow into your life, what boundaries you have around that kind of input, and how you also, when you get the input, because I'm not saying that you should just shut it all off forever, but when you get that input, you scroll through social media and you see something, you start to have practices that allow you to move through those feelings, that pressure of like, oh, maybe I need to do it that way. Because until we have those practices, until we have the awareness that that's what's happening, then we'll continue to see a post on social media and then change our entire business model because we think we have to be like those people. Ah, Pratibha, this is why mindset matters first. You're bringing me to my third point that I'm going to cover in just a second. Yes, yes, yes. Completely agree. Mm. Oh, I am so glad to hear that this is much needed. Yes, I think it's so much, much needed for so many people, including myself at times too. Okay. And then last question before I dive into my third point that I want to cover. Don't you think, Christy says, don't you think there's a way to do things out of order? For example, doing the website before you've worked with anyone or proven an offer. Sincerely curious for your thoughts on that. Yeah, I think that there are strategies that work and that makes sense in terms of like the business way of doing things. I think of alignment more, it's kind of like it's more about how are you doing it in your truth. So if you're creating a website and then creating a product, those to me seem quite basic. It's more about like what goes into the website. What is the product? And that's where people fall out of alignment. So the order of creating like a website and a lead magnet and then an online course, yeah, that's pretty general. That's good advice. But what a lot of people will do is they'll create the website and they'll design it based off of what they think it has to look like. And they won't infuse their personality into it because they think that they're too much. And then they create the course or the product and it's not infused with their authentic spirit. It's like, it feels like a carbon copy of everything else that's out there, right? So it's kind of like, yes, there are steps that you can follow that the high level works, but how do you infuse alignment and truth into your business model? So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. And then the third point that I want to make. So far, if you've been here, if you're just joining right now, we're talking about why I don't think there's a right way to do business, and really the right way is the aligned way, your way. And so asking yourself, why am I pressuring myself to do it the right way? Why am I trying to follow the status quo? What would it look like instead to listen to my own inner truth? And that actually there isn't a right way, because the right way is you just pulling somebody else's right way who also just pulled it from somebody else. And so it's very subjective and you get to create what the right way looks like for you. And so the last thing that I want to talk about is just thinking about what actual mindset block is preventing you from stepping into doing it your way. Because every time, that's what it is. It's a mindset block. What is preventing me from doing it my way? What is preventing me from infusing more of myself in my business? Which part of myself am I blocking from showing up fully with? I was actually just interviewing somebody for my mastermind, and this was the biggest thing that was holding him back from scaling his business. And he knew it, and he said it, and we talked a lot about it on the interview, because he knew that the main thing that was holding him back was his fear of being visible, his fear of being deeply seen by other people, and some scarcity thinking of like, what if I lose it all? What if I'm not good enough? All of those types of things. And these are really pervasive mindset blocks that I think most people deal with at some point. The fear of being seen, the fear of not being good enough. And so when we're afraid of doing it our own way, usually that's what's coming up. It's the fear of, I'm going to be seen for doing it my own way, and people won't like it. People will like it if I do it the right way, do it the status quo way, because that's the proven model. I have to show up that way because that's what people like. So if I do it my way and I'm seen and I'm visible and people don't like it, then that's freaking scary. That's really scary. That's what it feels like inside. And then what if I'm not good enough? So it's like, if I show up and I do it my way, well, what if I'm not good enough and I do it my way and it doesn't work out and people see that it didn't work out? That's the fear, right? It's fear of rejection, it's fear of not being good enough that I think almost all of us have deep down inside in some capacity until we start to work on it. And so how can we move through those mindset blocks? How can we move through those fears so that you can show up, you can be seen, and even if it doesn't always work out perfectly, it's like you can fall in love with the journey and the process instead of needing to be so attached to the result. You can have the inherent confidence inside of you so that if you experiment with something and it doesn't go according to plan, it doesn't shatter your world. It's just an idea. It's just an experiment. You try another one and eventually something works. That's been most of my journey in my own business, is just experimenting. And there's been a lot of things that didn't work, but it didn't like cause me to go into this cave of self-hatred. It was just like, okay, didn't work. What could I learn from this? What's here for me? And then how do I move on, and how do I innovate, and how do I experiment with something else, taking the knowledge from something that didn't work that I can now use for this other idea or project that feels aligned for me. So I think your mindset is literally everything. It's literally everything, because you can have all of the business strategies, which by the way are important. Like, don't get me wrong. Knowing the strategies and the steps and how to do things is like 50% of growing a business. But the other 50% is, how are you getting in your own way? How are you holding yourself back from your truth and alignment and authenticity? How are you preventing yourself from being seen? How's your fear of rejection showing up that's keeping you small? All of these things. How is your scarcity thinking preventing you from earning more money? Like, your mindset is such a crucial part of how you run your business and how you run your life. I mean, it shows up in everything. It shows up in the way that you talk to the person who rings up your groceries. It shows up in how you interact with your kids or your family. It shows up in how you talk to yourself. So your mindset is a major component of your life. It's almost everything in your life. And when I say mindset, I mean, there's so much that's buried under that. That's kind of just this big umbrella term for how you think and feel about your reality, and then how those thoughts and feelings dictate your actions and therefore your results. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about mindset, how your thoughts and feelings create your actions and therefore your results, and how so many of us have been indoctrinated with thoughts and feelings that don't allow us to take the actions we want, that don't get us the results we want. And until those thoughts and feelings are aligned with the actions and results that you want to create in your life, you won't be able to create them. And if you do somehow manage to create them, you won't be able to sustain them, because the mindset will continue to get in the way. So it's that important. It's really, really important. And it's why in my mastermind, it's a really big part of the program, because we know that to get really amazing results in your business, I think you need three things. You need the business strategy. So you need to know the things that do work. You need to know like how to put together an online course, and then you can put your own authentic aligned spin on it. You need to know the business strategy. You need to be surrounded by a community of people who are also striving and growing and supporting and encouraging you. You need community. Like, we don't accomplish anything great on our own. And you need mindset support. So you need the coaching and the support and the training around how do I move through these blocks? How do I step into my most confident sense of leadership? How do I forevermore learn how to be myself, right? Be seen, be okay with rejection, all of these things. So I think business strategy, community, mindset are the three things that go into true success. So if you want to apply for the mastermind, we have 1 day, roughly 1.5 days left that we're accepting applications, and we're in the process right now of doing interviews. So the program's about half full. We've got a couple more weeks of interviews scheduled. So I would highly recommend that you apply today, because we're going through and inviting people to an interview based on when they submitted their application. And once the program is full, it's full. So we won't be able to accept more people into the program. So if you want to apply, the link is boldabundancemastermind.com. So boldabundancemastermind.com. So if you go to that link, you can apply. There's no obligation to join after you apply. It just will set you up for a potential interview. So if we think you might be a good fit, we'll invite you to an interview. And the program is really encompassing of that three-pronged approach of the business strategy, mindset support, and community that you'll be surrounded by and coached by. So Bold Abundance Mastermind is where you can go apply. And yeah, applications for that close tomorrow. So get your application in today to make sure you can qualify. And let me see some of the comments here that are coming in. Yes. Yeah, I see a comment. It takes intentionality. Yes, I love that word, intentional. It really does. It's really just about being intentional. Instead of what we often do is unconsciously make choices, unconsciously run and grow our businesses. And it feels conscious, but it's not. It feels conscious because we're like making decisions and we're like, yes, I will do that. And yes, I will do that. But it's not intentional. It's not conscious because we're not actually checking in with ourselves to see, does this align with me? Does this feel like my truth, or does this just feel like the status quo that I'm following because I think I should? Right? So intentional, yes. What about fear of success? Yeah, that's a big one. And I think what's layered under, so we say like, I'm afraid of success or failure, right? A lot of people are afraid of both. So what's layered under the fear of success. So I always like to go underneath what's under the hood of this fear. And when you're afraid of the fear of success, or you have the fear of success, is usually that you envision what success looks like. Maybe you've had an experience of somebody who was successful. Maybe somebody in your family became really successful at some point. And so you got to see what it looked like. And then you also got to see what people had to say about that person's success. Maybe other people in your family were like, oh, they're so full of themselves. Oh, they don't care about us anymore. And so there's this mentality of who you will become if you're successful, and it's not a good thing, right? So we start to adopt other people's beliefs, especially when they are given to us when we're really young. And so the fear of success, I think, is usually rooted in that fear of being separate from other people, outgrowing your family or your friends, or what they're going to think of you if you're successful or wealthy or any of those things. Yeah, I think that's usually what's underneath. And then also the fear of success is being deeply seen, because we think that when we're successful, then everyone's eyeballs are going to be on us, right? And that's really confronting too, especially if you have fears of rejection, fears of being visible, fears of being seen. That can be really scary. So again, all of these are mindset things that, so if you can imagine, if you have that fear of success, what would you do and not do in your business because of it? Do you think it would hold you back because you're afraid of shining too bright? I have another mastermind member that I was talking to yesterday who has a parent that's very critical of successful people and doesn't like when this mastermind member I have shines too brightly. And so she has this awareness, my mastermind member has this awareness that she holds herself back in her business because she's afraid of losing that connection to her mom, right? So imagine if you have this kind of conditioning, what kinds of results this would create in your business, what things it would hold you back from doing, how it would hold you back from living in alignment too. So that's why we cover mindset in the mastermind, because it's like everything to you getting results in your life and in your business. And it's a whole can of worms. There's a lot laid underneath it, but we work bit by bit to start reprogramming things so that you can get lasting results, sustainable results that don't just like give you one strategy and then you go and implement it and get mediocre results and then have to like fight for more success or more results after that. You have sustainable success because you've reprogrammed yourself on a foundational, fundamental level. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that these teachings have been helpful for you. Just checking out the comments here. Thanks about the website too. I'm so glad that you love the website. If you haven't visited our new website, it's like my favorite place online now. It's my favorite place online now. It's just myname.com. You can go check it out. But I really love it too. Thank you. Yeah, so I hope this was helpful for you. I know that this was landing for a lot of people in the comments, but I want you to just, as I leave you today, think about, what would it look like to do it my way? What do I think it has to look like? What do I think I have to look like in order to be successful, in order to grow my business? And what could it actually look like instead? Where could I infuse more of me into the process, into what I'm creating? And how might that feel different than what I'm doing right now? Love the dance you do. The dance I do, this little thing. Thank you. Awesome. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being willing to go against the status quo with me. And thank you for willing to just discover more ways to live in alignment with your truth instead of the shoulds, instead of what you think you should do or who you think you need to be, because you already are who you are. So why not just be that person? Why not just be more of who you already are? That sounds freaking fire, right? That sounds really special. All right, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you next week. And if you together in my incubator for conscious entrepreneurs, go visit boldabundancemastermind.com. Applications close tomorrow. All right, bye.